I know for a fact AJ would fight Tyson Fury. I don't want to speak badly about Fury and his team, but I don't trust them.
2 Olympic gold medalists, 2 world champions, and 1 super fight. And that fight takes place between Oleksandr Usyk and Anthony Joshua, the heavyweight world champion. This, of course, is York Hall, one of the greatest venues in world boxing. And the fight this weekend, I've got to tell you, I think it's the biggest fight anywhere in the world this year. It's the fight that boxing needs, and it's the fight that boxing's talking about. And here to help me look at it, talk about it, and analyse it are Lawrence Okolie, the current WBO cruiserweight world champion, and Eddie Hearn, the man who's put it on. Eddie, let's cut straight to it. This fight came about from the ruins of the Tyson Fury Anthony Joshua fight. It's just a bonus that it's a great fight.
Yeah, I think when we first made this fight, it was almost a little bit of disappointment from the public that it wasn't Tyson Fury. As the fights got closer and people have realised just how good this fight is, I think we're really lucky to get this fight, to be honest with you. I mean, 2 Olympic gold medalists from London 2012, the unified heavyweight world champion against the undisputed cruiserweight world champion, the mandatory challenger. And as I always say, AJ should be commended. You know, he's a throwback fighter. Look at his resume going back to Dillian Whyte, which I think was his 15th fight, Charles Martin, Dominic Brazil, Eric Molina, Vladimir Klitschko, Joseph Parker, Carlos Takam, Povetkin, Ruiz, Pulev and Usyk. That's a straight run of fights. That is a resume that has not been seen for a long, long time in heavyweight boxing. And he's rolling the dice again this Saturday against a pound-for-pound great.
He's taking a risk on Saturday.
He is, but he's taking a risk because he's defending his throne. He's defending his castle. You know, there's many people that would have vacated this championship, and it would have been easy to do so. I could have come out, oh, we're not bothered about the belts
giving
anymore.
the WBO belt back, giving that one back
we're
and
not,
just
we're not going to be dictated to by the governing bodies. We're going to do our own thing. I could have just rolled that line out easy. Would have taken a little bit of stick, but we would have gone under the radar. AJ, absolutely no way. Would never even came into the conversation. I know him too well. I wouldn't have even asked him, Bunce, because I know what the answer would have been. No, why not? We fight Usyk. No problem. Because the dream has always been to be undisputed. And without taking care of your mandatory defences, sometimes you get an easier mandatory defence. This one is probably one of the toughest mandatory defences you can find. Horrible style, boxing genius. You know, I mean, just a great fighter. But AJ loves that. He loves the challenge, and he loves to know how good he is. And he wants to show the world how good he is on Saturday night. That's the key. Not just by knocking him out, I think, but actually outskilling him as well. I don't like that bit as much.
No, I don't either.
But that's definitely in his mind, because he wants to prove how good he is, and he wants to show the improvements that he's made in the last couple of years.
Lawrence, trying to outskill a slick southpaw, an accomplished southpaw like Usyk, surely that's the wrong move.
Oh, not necessarily, you know, obviously I've managed to see a bit, I'm not going to say too much, but I think that it's not even
But I'd like you to say plenty about the sparring that you've seen, please.
What I say, he looks amazing. What I would say though is that I don't think it's about outskilling. Like, I think everyone sees like a southpaw in and out and moving. I think it's more about tactics, if that makes sense. So it's about the tactics that you use. You don't need to go bull rushing or whatever, but you set up particular shots, and you know, IQ is shown in different ways. So I just think, as much as Usyk's a great boxer, mover, great IQ, you make the wrong mistake, step into the wrong position, you can get taken out any time.
Would there be a rematch if Usyk won for certain?
Yes.
That's part of the deal.
It's just in every fight, you know, with a champion and someone in the position of Anthony Joshua. You know, it's not. Sometimes people say, "Oh, why is there a rematch?" Because that's how it works, mate. You know, when you get a guy who's basically running the heavyweight division and you're getting an opportunity to fight him, and by the way, if Usyk wins, he will make an absolute fortune. He was not against a rematch. He was going, oh, yes, please, I'll have the rematch for a load more money. So it's not like these fighters, I have to sign this rematch clause. They want to fight 2 Anthony Joshua fights. We're not intending on using that clause. We used it once before with a guy we never excluded, and you know, that was tough to get that over the line. But we're hoping we don't need that this Saturday.
It's a great chance for Usyk to slip in and to become a massive star.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, obviously, that's probably one of the scariest things about Usyk is that he's someone that you've seen in his career chasing greatness. And obviously, winning a fight like this would, you know, cement him as the third person to win a cruiserweight world title and a heavyweight world title. So he's definitely, you know, he's coming with the hunger to win the fight. I don't know if I meant to give my take on it, but I just think that that's a good and a bad thing in a fight against someone like Anthony Joshua.
But there's been a lot of discussion, Ed, and I'll ask you about some of the pictures of AJ. People suggesting he looks very slim, and is he going to come in, you know, at his slenderest to try and match Usyk for speed? What's your reaction to that?
Well, I saw him 2 weeks ago. He looked absolutely massive. I mean, you know, he
looked
like a racehorse. No, he's definitely. I think what AJ's mindset used to be strength, explosiveness, you know, pumping weights. His new mindset is boxing. So I think he's been sparring probably for 10 or 11 weeks in a build-up to his fight because he wants to spend time in the ring and he wants to be boxing fit. So I think naturally when you stop, you know, charging on the weights and doing all this explosive stuff, you will slim down. I guess he's going to be around the same kind of weight as when he fought Andy Ruiz in the first fight. I like his speed in this fight. I think the worst thing he could be is bulky and just rely on size. No, but there's been a few times I've had a chat with AJ and he said, you know, people say a good big and beats a good little one. He don't buy that. He's not really saying this. It's not about size and just power and oversizing Usyk. I've got to be sharp with him. And I don't think, I mean, Lawrence might probably know more. I don't think it's a conscious effort to bring his weight down. I just think he's training in the way he thinks is best for Oleksandr Usyk. And if that makes him 3, 4, 5 pound lighter, so be it. But he's the right weight to do the rounds. And and he wants sharpness. You've got to be sharp on your feet against Usyk. You know, you can talk about backing him up and beating him up when he touches the ropes. You've got to be sharp on his feet.
To be there in the
and
first
actually, I think AJ's sharper on his feet than Usyk.
His best bet is to be a very good smaller guy, you know, in and out of range and trying to nick body shots and, you know, steal rounds for the early part. So yeah, I feel like, but at the end of the day, he's also getting older as well. Do you know what I mean? So him moving up to heavyweight, I think, you know, he hasn't been that active as well. So hopefully he has slowed down a bit. Not that AJ needs it per se, but I'd be happy seeing those kind of things.
Whilst we're here in your call, whatever the equivalent is in Kiev, there's a journalist out there talking to Usyk's promoter and talking to one of Usyk's sparring partners, and they're saying the exact same things about Usyk. You know that, Eddie. We know he's a danger. We know he's tricky. We know he's smart. But of all the fights that you've made for AJ since he signed professional with you after the London Olympics, where does this sit in regards to giving you not necessarily sleepless nights, but making you take a deep breath before your head hit the pillow?
I just think those nerve ends have just disintegrated now, Bunce. You know what I mean? After that night in Madison Square Garden with Ruiz and going to Saudi Arabia with everything on the line, when AJ's comfortable, I'm comfortable, right? Because he's the guy who has to go in there and do the business. So I know right now that he's in a great place, mentally, physically. So I'm more excited than nervous in this fight. Well aware of Usyk's ability. I mean, I go back to the Klitschko fight, and even Charles Martin. I had no idea. It was the unknown. Yeah. You know, you watch Vladimir Klitschko come out. I remember standing in the ring for Klitschko against AJ, and AJ just fixed the stare on Vitali, and they started staring each other out. And I'm looking at this in the ring, going, "What is going on here?" I have no idea.
I feel like you were stuck in a film.
Yeah, and I just, how good is AJ? How good is his chin? There's so many unanswered questions, but actually they've all been answered. And still to this day, because of the defeat to Ruiz, but how good's his chin? Watch the Vladimir Klitschko fight back and ask how good Anthony Joshua's chin is. I mean, he took the absolute kitchen sink off him that night. But I'm more excited than nervous, really, for this fight, because I really want people to realise how good this young man is. And I think with AJ, I don't think he'd ever admit it, but because of the way he is about winning and improving, and because of his love for the game and the way he studies the game, don't underestimate his desire to go down as a great. I don't think he's going to come out and say, I want to go down as a great, I want to be respected, I want a legacy. He said it in the media call, he said, I want my son to say, people say, your dad fought everybody, you know, and that's important to him. And this fight is the fight that puts him in the pound-for-pound list.
And
because that's deserted him, which I think is wrong. And I really believe that, because it was only a year ago, 2 years ago, that people had Usyk in the top 3 pound-for-pound. Now he goes to heavyweight, he's still on that pound-for-pound list. If AJ does the business, you've got to give him the respect to say this resume is unrivaled.
I think he's smarter than people think he is, and people think he's already smart. I think he's trickier, and I think he hits a little bit harder than people give him credit for. I'm not trying to scare you, I'm just telling you.
You've already scared me, Bunce, to be honest with you. But I think, you know, the run of going into people's backyards is particularly impressive. I mean, you even go back to the Michael Hunter fight, you know, in America. Of course, Tony Bellew in Manchester. Huck in Germany, Gassiev in Russia.
Gassiev in Russia?
In Russia, as a Ukrainian, you know, no fear. And then, of course, Bradis in Latvia as well. An incredible run.
Sequence.
Does he punch harder than... I think everyone can punch. I don't think he's a puncher, you know, and it doesn't mean you can't be fearful of him as a puncher, because he's sharp, and sometimes he hits you from angles with shots that you don't see, and sometimes they're the deadliest ones. I'm sure he can hurt all heavyweights, but I don't fear his power in this fight like I would watching AJ against Vladimir or against Wilder if that fight happened. This is another level, you know, this is another level, and this is 70,000. He'll never experience anything like this, and he will also be walking to the ring first.
Yeah.
And he will have to stand there and wait while AJ comes in with the fanfare, you know, and then he'll be looking across the ring at this absolute mountain of a man, who is not just someone who punches very, very hard, but is someone that punches very sharply with more speed than he's ever faced. I would say that Joshua is faster than Bellew, faster than Gassiev, faster than Bradis, faster than Huck, and he punches a lot harder than all of them.
So I feel like the size is going to matter in this fight. Not to say AJ's going to go and just grab hold of him, whatever, but...
Derek style.
Yeah, but when AJ does land, and he will land in the top, I think, you know, we'll see with the 70,000 screaming how Usyk takes it. AJ is a seasoned world-level world champion, one of the best in the world, full stop. And anyway, so I feel like that is going to play a factor. Like, it's not going to just be Usyk against a good heavyweight that's big. It's going to be one that knows why he's punching this place at this time. And, you know, as much as Usyk's, you know, got his own ambitions and stuff like that, I feel like, you know, reality is going to show itself on the day.
And Lawrence, we saw evidence of that hunger when he lost his unbeaten record and his world titles in Madison Square Garden, in that fabled ring, that sacred ring, when he got beat by Ruiz, which was a great shock, a great fight, but a great shock, June the 1st. He was soon back at Finchley, soon back at the club where he'd started, training alongside, you know, some of the young amateurs in the gym. I'm not even sure if he wasn't paying his £5 sub on the door. I mean, that shows a degree of determination, a degree of single-mindedness, Lawrence.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, it's clear to see, especially in the return. Obviously, a lot of pressure is put on AJ, you know. As you said, he's seen everywhere. He's the biggest star in Britain, if not world boxing. So it does come with a lot of pressure, but I think it's great how he handles it. He strips it all back and gets down to basics, which is boxing, as Eddie said earlier. I think that's the thing he enjoys doing the most. You know, commercial stuff's all amazing, but AJ's a fighter, that's the truth.
You see these great fighters, Canelo Alvarez, Anthony Joshua, who achieve everything maybe they wanted to achieve as a kid. You know, they've got the money, he's already got legacy, you know, but it's not enough. They're competitors, they're winners. And that's what motivates them more than anything. You know, to see AJ at this stage in his career, training harder than he's ever trained, you know, doing more in camp, thinking more about, you know, preparation, sparring, you know, it's the will to want to improve. When he boxed Klitschko, he didn't really know what he was doing. You know, it was just pure heart, grit and strength that got him through that night. And actually, as that changed, you know, after Klitschko, you know, into Takam, into Parker, into Povetkin. It was around the Povetkin fight where I think he started to think to himself, I need to make changes because I'm going to get beat. Yeah. And then he went into the Ruiz fight and actually got beat. And it was that moment where he says, I need to change things. You know, he brought a few more people into camp. He changed the way he was living his life. More time in Sheffield, you know, better sparring partners. And now you see a very comfortable Anthony Joshua. I said to you earlier, AJ, you can't bluff AJ. Some fighters, you can grab hold of him and say, you're in great shape, mate. You're going to take this guy out. And you say, yeah, yeah. He's too smart for that. He needs to be comfortable, right? And before, I don't think he was comfortable. Now I think he is. I think he goes into this fight on Saturday very comfortable with his preparation, very comfortable with his tactics, knowing exactly what he has to do in this fight. Appreciating it's going to be tough, and he's not going to get it all his own way, but comfortable going into the ring. You know, and that's the big difference. And again, it's just the hunger to win, the hunger to succeed, the hunger to improve. That's what makes him such a special individual.
Generally, we get Usyk dancing, we get Usyk with his crazy haircut, looks like it's been sheared with a pair of garden shears, you know, it's just ridiculous cuts, you know, and he dances and he does all of his crazy eccentric stuff, like he'll buy 1,000 avocados and make guacamole for friends of his because he believes this is the miracle food. I mean, he's odd, he's eccentric. But we've not seen a lot of those. First to you, Lawrence, we've not seen any of those in this build-up. We've just seen a couple of him with the haircut smiling, but we've not seen. He's obviously in the type of training camp that he'll need to come anywhere close to putting off a shot.
Yeah, and also he's probably getting older as well, so maybe less.
Well,
less
sensible.
Into, yeah, either way. I just I kind of just think that maybe even just the heavyweight reality is setting in as well. You know, he's been in 2 heavyweight fights and realised it's different. You know, I've sparred heavyweights and I know how I feel sparring cruiserweights and how I feel sparring heavyweights. You know, you remember the shots the day after with heavyweights, with cruiserweights, you just brush it off. So it's very different.
Everybody's got an opinion. In fact, everybody's got an opinion, everyone, from taxi drivers to the men checking your tickets on trains to the woman in the cafe. But I'm going to ask you first, Lawrence, for a way, a method, an idea, a suggestion of how Saturday's fight will finish.
I'd like to believe, just for my own heart as well, that AJ wins within, I would say, 8 to 10. You know, I believe, of course, Usyk's got the skills if he wants to go fully defensive to completely write off, but I think he will come to win the fight, you know, and that will hold him, like, it will come unstuck. So I believe that AJ will get it in the, like, not end rounds, but the middle to late rounds.
Eddie, what's your gut feeling? I mean, we've still got a way to go. What's your gut
probably
feeling?
the same, but actually, I don't know. Quite fancy an early one. Just be nice, wouldn't it? I just don't want to bite the fingernails and, like, you know, be sitting there scoring it with the old man or whatever is after 4 or 5 rounds. Let's just have a nice early one. Little sharp, you know, nice, Charles Martin style, you know, sit back, right hand to the southpaw, down the pipe. And I like it, you know, like the Pulev fight. And Lawrence, can you do this on Saturday as well?
Right on.
Just make sure they don't get up.
Okay.
I mean, I remember watching the Klitschko fight when he went down for like the 3rd time, where it was right hand, left hook to the body, left hook to the head. He went down like a tree.
Yeah, he did.
I've jumped up and down, started hugging everyone, and I've looked back at the ring.
This guy's back up.
And he's getting back up again.
But equally in that fight, Joshua went down like he'd been hit by a sniper. He was unconscious as he dropped. He woke up when he hit the floor.
That was the 5th and 6th round, 2 of the best heavyweight rounds I've ever seen. But let's just make it a clean one, Bunce. Do you know what I mean? When they go down and you go, they ain't getting up, and we can just celebrate.
I can go in the ring
and move on.
There is obviously, it's an outdoor show. It's an Eddie Hearn show. There's a full undercard. Callum Smith's on the undercard. Campbell Hatton, the young son of Ricky Hatton's on the undercard. And Lawrence Okolie, of course, is defending his WBO cruiserweight title on the undercard. Lawrence, I've not been rude by ignoring you. I told you we'd get to it. You're fighting an unbeaten man, a guy that can hit people on the chin and they go over. What do you know about him? How much do you know about him?
Yeah, I know it's the same as you. Like I said, he's a good, awkward fighter. Really good knockout ratio, confident from what I see on social media and just in his fights in general. So, yeah, I look forward to the challenge.
Well, let's hope it's not much of a challenge, and I mean that in the nicest possible way, because it's an AJ night. But, well, actually, maybe it's not. Maybe it's a Campbell Hatton night. It's quite a competitive fight for Campbell, this one.
Yeah,
I know he's 3-0 at the moment, and he's still a baby, but this is a fairly decent competitive fight.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good card. I mean, as Lawrence said, I mean, he came out, he debuted on the Dillian White card in Gibraltar. He was all over the place. He did 4 rounds, the fittest kid in Manchester. He couldn't breathe after 2 rounds. And this is what the energy and the nerves do to you. Come back with a nice performance. You know, Saturday fights a guy who's more competent. And again, it's a different kind of experience. It's very hard to be calm in that environment on Saturday night. Lawrence has experienced, you know, stadium shows. He'll still struggle to be calm. AJ, I'm sure, will probably still struggle, but once you experience an experience. But for Campbell, he is going to walk out and not know what's going on. So, you know, big fight for him and some big fights on the card as well.
Every fight has a story, and we're only on, I'm not sure if we're even past the introduction to the fight that we were meant to have, August 14th in Saudi Arabia. Everybody said it was on. AJ in one corner, Tyson Fury in the opposite corner. We had our tickets bought. How did the Fury and Joshua fight fall out of bed so dramatically?
Just really for a ruling from a judge that we were told had no chance. Really.
This was the arbitration ruling on the third fight between Wilder and Fury.
We worked, I mean, I had zero support to get that fight made, you know, from Fury's team. We got it done, we agreed the deal, Fury announced the fight, and we were good to go. And the next day, we get a ruling that we were told has absolutely no chance of materialising. The whole thing stinks to high heaven, but on the upside, we got Joshua Usyk and we got Fury against Wilder. If both the Brits can win, the undisputed fight becomes 3 times bigger than it was previously. 2 tough fights, you know, and I think we just got to move on. It is what it is. Anyone that knows AJ, and you can see from the resume, will fight absolutely anyone. Assuming
they both win during this mad 15-day period, can't we just, and maybe I'm being naive after...
Too much common sense.
Yeah, sorry, brother.
You know that doesn't exist in
boxing.
I
know, exactly, and I should know after all these years. But can't we just lift up the blueprint we had on May the 13th, the day before the hearing or whenever it was, and just put it in place? No, you're looking at me like I'm crazy.
That sounds too sensible. You know, I just don't, you know, I don't want to, you know, speak badly about Fury and his team, but I don't trust them. I don't trust. So really, we've got to look after ourselves and our own business, which is Oleksandr Usyk. The only thing that matters right now is that fight. I believe that Tyson Fury would fight Anthony Joshua, and we know it's the biggest financial fight in boxing. I know for a fact AJ would fight Tyson Fury. I would be shocked if both won their upcoming fights and we didn't see that fight.
Everyone's had a bad period. We've had COVID. We've had no fights. We've had fights collapse. We've had 70,000 sellouts collapse. We've had unification fights that were going to generate $500 million collapse. We've got this. Trust me, it's good. But it has been a tough time, not just for boxing, but specifically for heavyweight boxing.
You know, some of those defeats that we've seen during lockdown have been probably for that reason. Potentially the first Warrington-Lara fight being the best example.
Because Warrington, who can sell 25,000, 30,000 fans, has got no one there. He's just got 6 cornermen.
He walked out and, you know, he was singing his lead song and he was saluting the crowd that actually weren't there. It was all weird. Still got beat. That's just sport, tough, you know. But I think that certain fighters perform in different ways.
Do you think, I'll ask you first, Lawrence, do you think there's a great hunger for fans? I mean, you won your world title behind closed doors, which was terrific for the 62 of us that were there on the night. And it was glorious. You know, you did a great job in Glowacki to win that title. But do you sense there's a hunger and a desire for boxing fans to get back ringside, even if, not ringside, but even if they're up in the gods at Spurs? Do you get that sense?
No, 100%. I mean, you could just, I mean, Eddie would probably know more just with ticket sales and the energy that I've got when they announce me in the cards. People are hungry to come. And I think it works both ways, you know, like as boxers, as much as we do it for the love of the sport, we also enjoy the feeling of like performing in front of our friends and family and supporters. So I feel like once there's crowds, everyone wins, you know.
And when you get an event like Joshua Usyk, that deserves 65, 70,000 people, you know, and that's going to be a spectacle. And on Saturday, we put boxing back on the map again. You know, we put British sport back on the map again.
It's the biggest heavyweight title fight to ever take place in Great Britain. It's going to be a massive affair. Thanks for watching.